Speaker, just 2 months ago, Canadians were fully tuned into an election campaign set against the backdrop of a tariff war and uncertainty about Canada's relationship with our largest trading partner. Looking for a solution, they saw a Liberal leader who claimed to be a fresh face, declaring that he would be different from the last decade of inaction on the national building projects that we desperately needed. He said he would be a change in the direction from the Liberal policies that made it impossible to get anything built in this country, the very policies that he championed as Trudeau's economic advisor. Last night on Power Play, his House leader basically admitted that the previous system was too onerous, and Canadians have voted them in to now do big projects. Another admission of 10 years of intentional sabotage of our energy resources the world needs and asks for. It's important to note the roles of the provinces, territories, Indigenous leaders need to be respected. Canadian workers and investors need to be prioritised. I want to give a shout out for the excellent work of the Transport Committee into the wee hours of this morning to agree to 13 significant amendments to C5 that provide oversight, access to information, conflict of interest compliance, timelines, consultations, and protections that will increase the confidence of Canadians moving forward. However, there is still a glaring failure that will continue to inhibit the restoration of our economy and growth to become the energy superpower that we must become. The No New Pipelines Law, C-69, the shipping ban that applies only to vessels carrying oil and gas, the job-killing oil and gas production cap, and the industrial carbon tax that will raise the cost of everything on all projects remain in place. Giving a free pass to a few federally controlled projects obviously fails to generate the private sector growth. We need to restore powerful paychecks that should stimulate individual prosperity in every corner of this country long into the future. Speaker, 16 major energy projects have been delayed or denied under this Liberal government, projects that could have brought in over $176 billion. These weren't merely devastating numbers. These are lost paychecks, lost opportunity, and lost hope for thousands of Canadian families. Canadians overwhelmingly rejected political parties at election time who, time and again, refused to recognize the vital importance of our resources and the prosperity they create. However, the Liberal C5 marginally improves our ability to move projects forward. And yes, Conservatives will support any measure, no matter how small, if it will help one single project break ground. So far, C5 is largely a symbolic move to make minor improvements to interprovincial trade and regulatory clarity. It will provide clearer or more streamlined regulatory guidance for designated resources of infrastructure projects. But the Prime Minister will need to do more to free his dream projects from the existing laws he helped create to choke development. With C5, the overall environment for free market, private sector development remains restrictive. Meanwhile, it was Conservatives who put forward the only credible plan to reignite energy investment in Canada. Canadians, you need to know that we are still committed to our plan to repeal Liberal anti-development laws and regulations that have cost you $500 billion in lost investment over the last decade, a national energy corridor to rapidly approve and build critical infrastructure and end our dependence on the Americans. One-and-done approvals to accelerate priority resource projects through one application and environmental review. Scrap the industrial carbon tax, lower costs for Canadians while boosting our economy and allowing our companies to become competitive again with the U.S. We will repeal C-69 and the West Coast tanker ban to build the infrastructure needed to export our clean, responsible energy overseas. The Prime Minister is known to have a fondness for Conservative ideas, although he has watered each one down with a minuscule tax cut, a very combined GST break, and a sleight-of-hand huge increase in carbon tax measures. For the sake of our country, those who go to work every day to power Canada and the world, and those who desperately want to do so, I implore the Liberal government to continue to follow our lead. If not, we're on the doorstep.
So thank you to the member for the question. Mr. Speaker, from 2015 to 2023, global oil and gas production grew 5%. Over the same time period, Canadian oil and gas production grew 29%. Of course, we welcome constructive suggestions for improvement, Mr. Speaker, and we'll be working with partners, provinces and proponents because better is always possible. But a total retreat from that which made development possible and markets accessible is not better. Demand for Canadian oil and gas grows because we develop our resources to high environmental and social standards, with Indigenous partners and with an eye towards a robust, sustainable industry. Canada is at a pivotal moment, and we are taking a historically important step to establish ourselves as an energy superpower. That's why this government has introduced the One Canadian Economy Act to remove federal barriers to internal trade and labour mobility and advance projects of national interest. We expect that if the One Canadian Economy Act passes in the next few days, it will reassure investors that Canada and our energy sector is open for business. I'm pleased to say, Mr. Speaker, that the voting record on the One Canadian Economy Act so far shows the official opposition supports our work to lead the world in energy production and transmission. The government's vision is clear. We are focused on expanding our global energy reach beyond those who share our borders to those who share our values. Canadian conventional energy, LNG, and hydrogen produced to the highest environmental and labor standards can displace more polluting sources abroad, reduce global emissions, and enhance energy security for our allies. While this work is being done, our government will keep investing in carbon capture, methane reduction, and other technologies that help bring down emissions in the conventional energy sector. I'd also like to point out the TMX project. A Liberal government invested in TMX to expand the access to Canada's conventional energy producers so they have global market access. Greater access to international markets has improved the overall value of Canadian oil, generating significant benefits for the entire country. We will also support clean energy and protect the environment because it's the right thing to do. It is a strong Canadian value. We will get more energy to market while fighting climate change through strategic investments in carbon capture, methane reduction, and clean technologies. As the Prime Minister has said before, this government will get projects built. Of course, we will work with provinces, private sector proponents, and Indigenous communities. Indigenous rights will not be an afterthought. They are bedrock of our nation. The protections in Section 35 are enshrined in our Constitution, and this government stands steadfastly in support of them and the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. We need to work together. We are focused on growing our economy, carrying out our duty to our partners, and supporting our energy producers. We must focus on delivery. This government will build more, build faster, and build with confidence. Confidence that we will provide certainty to investors, and confidence that will give Canadians a better, more prosperous future. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Well, Mr. Speaker, it's pretty clear to me that our effectiveness on this side of the floor has been significant. On resource development, the Prime Minister made a revealing admission. He acknowledged that his government's own laws made it nearly impossible to build anything, and his solution is to give political exemptions to a few hand-picked projects. But here is our question. If you admit the laws don't work, why not repeal them altogether? That's why Conservatives are calling for a true national sovereignty law, one that repeals the disastrous Bill C-69, lifts the tanker ban, scraps the energy cap, and the job-killing industrial carbon tax. One that unlocks our potential with shovel-ready zones that provide clear permitting paths for mines, dams, nuclear plants, LNG facilities, pipelines, and more. For the sake of our youth, we can't wait. We want a Canada that is self-reliant, sovereign, and independent, where workers take home powerful paychecks. What the member is saying on the other side of the floor reflects this side of the floor, and it's time to see them actually do it.